Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prophetic Art In. This is Tara, and I am here today with another video. Today, we're going to talk about anxiety disorder. Remember, I said on this channel, it's everything, and this is something God wanted me to address. So, we're going to talk about anxiety, what it looks like. I think some people think panic attacks is anxiety, but they're actually two different things. Kind of all stems from kind of like the same place, but however, anxiety disorder is something that builds over time. It's not something that just comes on a whim, all of a sudden, boom, like a panic attack. Okay, so we'll talk about some things that you can do to kind of help alleviate the symptoms, things that causes you to have anxiety, and I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible. Okay, and there's no way we can dive into everything in one video, so over time I'll do multiple videos about anxiety and kind of relate it to my experiences. Okay, so anxiety basically stems from fear. It can develop into panic. um, Anxiety is something that makes you feel nervous, afraid. Sometimes it comes with a trigger, and you know why you're feeling anxious. Sometimes not so much. Um, Environment has a lot to do with it. Sometimes it's the people you're around. In my case, when I was young, it was my home environment. It's safe to say that kind of like fear was instilled in us as children. There was always something to be afraid of, whether that be, oh, you can't do this, you can't go out into the world, you can't do this, or you might get killed, or you can't do this, or just, being afraid of, you know, things that were happening at home in our house. And, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody else, but I know how it affected me as a child. And I spent a lot of my days just being afraid. And over time, that developed into full blown anxiety disorder and into panic attacks. And while I thought I started to experience anxiety somewhere around 17, God actually showed me that I experienced my first attack maybe somewhere around 13, 14. I was at the fair and getting on rides like I normally do, all children do. And for whatever reason, I just went into this whole panic thinking that I'm on this ride, I'm gonna die. And I couldn't breathe. It was just a whole big deal for me. Now, of course, my family being not, I didn't look at them as people to share things with, like confide in. So nobody knew. Nobody knew that I was having this full blown anxiety attack. I just withdrew, and just kind of kept it to myself. Um, and then over time, I would have them in other situations. It was more of a panic attack, but as years progressed, I began to have more of anxiety, just generalized fear, fear of going places, fear of doing things. So anxiety can take on a lot of different looks. You can have social anxiety. You can have generalized anxiety where you just fear everything or whatever, something in particular. Most of the time, it stems from something. It can stem from, in my case, my childhood. In other people's cases, it could be work. It could be something that happened, a death in the family, what have you. It can be any type of life stressor can result in anxiety disorder. I think it's safe to say that everybody at some point in time in their life experiences anxiety because it's generated from fear. It's anxiousness, okay, which can turn into panic and can turn into a panic attack. Um, but there are some things I know what helped me. Everybody's not the same. My recommendation is to talk to somebody, okay? Somebody you can trust, somebody who's not going to downplay your symptoms, somebody who's not going to generate more fear. I hate to say this, and I wish I could just be like, oh, go see a professional. They know. But sometimes they can even say the wrong things because that happened in my experience, okay? So anytime I went to see somebody, it was like they were, I like to call flip it the lip, because you don't know a person well enough to just start saying, oh, well, this is this, or this is what's happening with you. You've talked to me 30 minutes, so how can it just makes you more uncomfortable than anything. So in my experience, whenever I went to talk to somebody, I pretty much end up not going back after one or two times. So what worked for me was my spiritual connection with God. Even when I didn't hear God like I do now, my go-to was always either to listen to gospel music or worship. It brought me comfort. To read my Bible, it brought me comfort. And now today, I just talk things out with God. When I seem to feel overwhelmed, um, I just came across a word last night that God had given me some weeks ago, when He was saying that, you know, if you magnify me, then I can minimize the anxiety and the fear. And I was like, wow, Lord, I never, he was like, that's where people, tend to go wrong. They don't realize in the magnification of me in their lives, it will minimize and diminish what the enemy is trying to do to attack. Now, if you're not a spiritual person, this may not be the video for you. But in my belief, a lot of things that we go through is happening in the spiritual realm. So we're being attacked spiritually, warfare type attacks, because it is the enemy's job to deter us, to bring on this negativity, to make us think that we're less than. And the Bible teaches us that we don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against um, spirits in the heavenly places and principalities in the heavenly places. So this is all taking place to me in the spiritual realm. So that is what was effective with me. Now, have I been on medications? Yes. I tend to like not to take, I tend to not like to take things that alters how I feel. So it didn't work for me. It didn't, and I think that God made it that way so that I could lean on Him more, even as at a young age, because anxiety can make you feel like you've lost control, not just of your life, but just of who you are as a person. You can't really connect with people. Nobody, really understand. Growing up, my family called me crazy and all this kind of stuff, and you know, and now I think as everybody's gotten older and has experienced anxiety, they realize that she wasn't crazy. This thing is so real. Yeah, but when you're young and you're kids, you don't understand things. So you kind of turn it into a joke, but it wasn't a joke. To go through those things at such a very young age and to just kind of feel alone. And I kind of watched my mom go through it as well, and in that instance I end up helping her come out of her anxiety. I'm a reader, so I would just read things to just help me learn how to cope. I would do breathing exercises. That's something you can research. Exercise like taking a walk. I would go sit outside a lot. I still do that. um, and one day I was really, I think I was headed towards a panic attack, and I was young, and I had gotten dressed and I was going someplace, and my anxiety just started to increase. And wow, I felt so overwhelmed, and I went in, I stood on the porch, and this is, I was a kid, and it was raining, and something just said, step out into the rain. And I did, and y'all, that was the most gratifying. It was almost like God was washing all my fears away. Like I came out of it drenched, soaking wet, and I'm pretty sure the neighbors thought I was full blown, had lost it. But in that moment, that rain and whatever it did for me, it was so therapeutic. And that's what we have to do. We have to find something that's therapeutic, that works for us. It may be talking to somebody, it could be talking to a professional, a counselor, a coach. I tend to think that when people experience what you've been through, then they can more relate than just any old body, and I can understand that, when you go to school for something, it's your profession, and that's great. And some people are really great at their job and having empathy. But me as a child, my first time going to a mental health facility, and the lady looked at me and said, "Oh, your problem is you just too close to your mama." I'm like, "What? You love your mama too much? What? Lady, what does that have to do with how I feel? Like, what does that have to do with these panic attacks and this fear?" So they just kind of reckless with their words. I had somebody else, tell me, "Oh, you your family punching bag." And I'm like, "Oh." Like, so sometimes finding somebody to talk to can be very, very difficult. And I think that's why God led me into this whole doing the videos, and then starting, with coaching individuals, because I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to have somebody be reckless with their words and make you feel worse than what you did when you went there. So, but just to let you know that you're not alone. A lot of people experience anxiety. A lot of people don't talk about it, because I never did. I just kind of suffered in silence. But, I want to discuss some of the symptoms of anxiety, because it comes with physical symptoms, mental symptoms, changes in your behavior, the whole 9 yards. So then this just covers a few. I have actually read in my research where anxiety, there were a over 100 symptoms that can be caused by anxiety disorder. But physical symptoms can be the fast and noticeable heartbeat. It could be pounding. I get this sometimes, and I'm able to correct it with breathing exercises. Feeling lightheaded, dizzy. I get that as well sometimes. I have in the past. Headaches, chest pain, loss of appetite. That's big for me. That's big for me. Like, that was always my thing. Like, when I think, because I associated a lot of my anxiety with the way that I grew up, and my being told that my weight was going to always lead to my death and all this kind of stuff. So I would always stop eating. It almost took me out of here for me not eating. Sweating, breathlessness, feeling hot, shaking, like having difficulty breathing, to me was a big thing for anxiety. And I'm going to tell y'all about some things, tangible things that you can do just to give yourself a peace of mind. Like me, I always felt like I was breathless, like my oxygen was depleting. I bought myself a pulse ox, the thing that go on your finger that measures your oxygen level, and that used to bring me so much peace, so much peace, because when I look at it and it's normal, I know I'm good. So tangible things like that you can do to kind of just bring yourself out of that fear mode. Um, Mental symptoms, you can feel tense, you can feel nervous, unable to relax. You're worrying about the future, you're worrying about the past. Things just bombard your mind. And that happens to all of us. And me personally, I just cast it down because, especially if it's something, one thing about it, you can only live in the now. You can't go back and change the past, and you cannot go to the future and prepare it. So the only thing you can do is live in the now. So I just have to tell myself that, like God tells us, we are not to be anxious about anything. Worry about today, because it has all the troubles in today. So never worry about tomorrow. And scripture to me brings me a lot of comfort, because it's like the Lord is talking to me directly. Um, Not being able to sleep, difficulty concentrating, fear of something worse happening. And let me tell you something God told me one time. And I was worried about something, and God said, "Do you realize that most of the things you worry about, they never come to pass?" And I was like, "You know what, Lord, you're right." So a lot of times we're fearful of things that will never happen. And it's just about me personally having that relationship with God. For you, it might be something different. Intrusive traumatic injuries, like I said, dwelling on the past of things that has happened. I'm not telling you to dismiss things that have happened to you traumatically. What I'm saying is get help to cope with those things. Me personally, I took it all to the Lord and I laid it down. I cried it out. I screamed. I hollered. I did everything so that I can be cleansed of the things that happened to me in the past. Obsessive thoughts. You obsess over things, like I said, that are generally out of our control. That's not good either. You'll have changes in behavior. You can't enjoy yourself. You can be in a room full of people, everybody's having a great time, and you're worried. I have a story about that. When I was graduating from nursing school, we graduated in the summer, so there was no actual graduation, but we had our pinning. Everybody was excited. Everybody was that my family was coming to where I was. They were going to come to my pinning. We were having a cookout. Where was Tara on the day that she was supposed to be pinned? In the doctor's office, full blown panic mode, anxiety, blood pressure elevated. I was afraid. Afraid of what? I don't know. Afraid of success, maybe. Afraid of, I can't believe I did this. I know something bad gonna happen because I never um, achieve anything. Um, I was just really, really overwhelmed. And growing up, it was like everything that was good in our lives was always short lived. So I grew up with that being my baseline when it came to happiness. Like as children, we can sit around and be watching TV, laughing and talking, and my dad comes home and he shuts the whole thing down, screaming, hollering, fussing, cursing, threatening. Like, so anything that was ever good in my life was always short lived. And so the fact that I had made it that far, y'all, I was in full blown panic mode. Full blown. I remember sitting in that penny with a pulse ox in my pocket, just having to keep checking to make sure that I was still alive, that I wasn't on my way out of here. I'm telling you, who I just thank God for peace. I thank God for Him coming into my life and doing the things that He has done to bring me out of allowing the enemy to just take me to those places mentally. Okay? Difficulty looking after yourself. I never got to that point, but some people do. Like you don't want to bathe, you don't want to get dressed, you don't want to groom yourself, you don't want to have a desire to look nice. Um, you can't hold relationships, whether it be friendships, family, what have you. And don't ever get that confused with God separating you and setting you apart. That's two different things. Worried about trying new things, avoiding places and situations that create anxiety, compulsive behavior such as constantly checking things. I was compulsively checking my pulse when I was young. I learned how to check my own pulse way before I ever became a nurse because that was one of the things that would frighten me to make me think that I wasn't going to make it. Now, with a panic attack, you have the racing heartbeat, you feel faint, dizzy, lightheaded, some of the same symptoms, feeling like you're losing control, sweating, trembling, shaking, shortness of breath, or breathing very quickly, a tingling in your fingers or your lips, feeling sick, like nauseous. But one thing about a full-blown panic attack, they last anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes. It's not something that lasts like for a long period of time. But anxiety is something totally, totally different. And we talked about some of the things you can do to alleviate. I'm going to say this. A lot of times you need to check your surroundings. You need to check your friends. You need to check who you're connected to. Because a lot of times people will dump on you and it will bring you anxiety. I'm going to say that again. People will dump on you. They will dump their problems, their negativity, or just making you feel insignificant, making you feel bad and generate anxiety. And I'm going to give you a prime example. For years, I went with no anxiety problems. For years. For years. No issues, nothing whatsoever. Maybe a little anxiousness here and there, no big deal. Until I met my ex-husband. When I met him, I lived in the emergency room. I lived at the doctor's office. Panic attack after panic attack. Anxiety symptoms after anxiety symptoms. I had lost weight and it ended up with blood pressure, high blood pressure, because in the relationship with him, he was always projecting his negative things in his life onto me. So it was one horrible experience after another. And after I divorced him, yeah, it went away. He was my problem. He was causing me to revert back to how my life was because growing up, my life was traumatic and he was making it traumatic. See, so a lot of times we got to be willing to walk away from the things that are causing us to be anxious. that are bringing back our post-traumatic stress disorder. All of those things, everybody, I don't care who you are, we all experience PTSD, I would think. Something in our lives that has triggered stress in our life. And being with this man was not good for my health. Let's just say that. So talking to somebody, like I said, breathing exercises, um, changing your diet. I had to do that. Um, but don't try to take things on yourself. You know, if you admit that you need help, if you need help, that's fine. The Lord blessed me where I was able to work through it. It was hard, but I went through it with minimal help. All I did was lean on God. And don't minimize how powerful God is when it comes to you dealing with anxiety or any other kind of disorder or health problem, because he has all power. So I don't want to minimize that your spiritual connection with God and knowing that you can be safe with him and you can pour your heart out to him and there's no judgment. But you have to first develop that relationship to know that he hears you. Okay? So I hope this helped somebody today. I pray that this reaches whoever it needs to reach, that you're not alone. You can always schedule a coaching with me or somebody else. Have a conversation. Talk about what's bothering you, so that you can get on the road to a better you. Get on the road to healing, because anxiety can debilitate you. It can debilitate your progress. It can hinder you from living your best life, okay? Because when I was in that relationship and I was experiencing all these things, I couldn't focus on me. I couldn't focus on me. And outside of that, now that I'm done with that relationship and God blessed me and moved me out of that situation, my uh, anxiety levels and all those things have significantly decreased, if not diminished. So just trust God, know who he is in your life, okay? And like I said, I mean, it's no secret if I'm calling myself the prophetic RN, know everything I do gonna be Holy Spirit led. Everything I say, because I do believe in the power of prayer. I do believe in the power of God. I do believe that he has the ability to heal all things. So if you can't do nothing else, cry out to God. It's free. Free, 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 free. Okay? And I assure you that he can bring you peace in all of that turmoil. I will talk to you guys later when I have another video, when the Holy Spirit leads me, and I think I know what he's leading me to. But I will pray on it, and when he brings me back, I will be back. Okay? So I love you guys. I'm praying for you all. And like I said, if you ever just need somebody to talk to, I'm here. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.